Hello and welcome to my video. Right, that's the bottom of the thing that I'm going to paint on today, and it's tall. Now, the reason it's tall is because I'm going to paint a better video of this picture. This is one I painted, I don't know, must be 5 or 6 years, I think, anyway. But I thought the video quality was so bad because I wasn't really a particularly good videographer. Don't think I'm particularly good now, but working on it. Anyway, it's tall, so this is what I'll be working on. So that's the total thing. Okay, now going down to the bottom, because that's where I'm going to start. And by start, I mean just put in a little bit of landscape along the bottom, and then I'm going to go up the top there and start working on the sky and bring it down to the landscape. So this is really just a quick bit of something for me to work on later down here, and it's not going to be anything special. Well, I hope the sky will, but down here it's going to be just a very, very simple basic landscape, something like this. And it doesn't matter about the top edge of the landscape. Anything I do here will change. So anyway, let's keep this nice and simple. Double check the camera, make sure I'm showing you what you're supposed to be seeing. So we're going to have some trees there on the side of a hill. We're going to have the hill coming down here. And in a moment, I'll show you how small this landscape part will actually be in comparison to the sky. Really quite small. As I said, something really simple. This is sort of reflects the landscape where I live. It's very like this. Is that correct to say that? Very like this? It's very much like this. So let's just see what we can do anyway. I put this on Facebook saying that I'm going to do this, and I was going to do it yesterday. Today is the 22nd of October. I was going to do it yesterday, but if any of you have been following me, you know I have quite severe food allergies, and I had a really interesting episode yesterday and a little bit the day before. And so yeah, I seem to be allergic to everything. Anyway. Mustn't grumble, as they say. So here we are. There's a sort of very, very simple, there's a little bit of a hill over there, I think. Why not? Because, you know, there's a lot of hills in these brushes. So all I'm doing is pulling them out. Let's just get some tone. Now this is sap green and red ochre, the colour that I usually use. And just as a reminder, the reason I use it is because out of that basically one colour that I've put on, you've got all those different tones of green there, and it's very flexible, and I can make them lighter or even darker just with a quick wipe of a piece of paper. So over here, let's have a few simple shapes there. Let's get some. In fact, I'll tell you what. Let's just get some colour on first, and then we'll figure out the. Well, it's not drawing. I suppose it's drawing with paint. The drawing with paint aspect I'll do next with a piece of paper. And here is a special piece of paper. And all I want to do is just put a light streak there, that's all, just dead simple, that's it. And back to the brush, because that stripe there becomes a field, and it becomes a field with trees in front of it. It doesn't get any more simple than that. You can do this. You may think you can't, but boy or girl, I've got news for you. You can do this. Just got to have a little bit of confidence and the ability to believe in yourself. So there we are, very, very simple, basic bit of landscape. And the next thing I'm going to do is the sky. Before I continue, here's a quick look at my palette. So I'm using Ultramarine, which is this one here, Payne's Grey, Royal Blue, and I think really that's going to be it for the sky. It doesn't take much to get a dramatic sky, because it's basically something dark, something not so dark, and something very light in its simplest form, I think. Oh, and of course titanium white, which I have there, and a very cheap, as usual, hardware store brush. All the details that I can think that you might ask me are going to be in the box underneath this video. So if you ask me a question and the answer is there, if you don't hear from me, go and read what's in the box, and then you'll get your answer. Okay, back to the painting. Okay, so as I said, rather than show you the whole thing as I'm going through it, I'm going to start on the top, and then you can sort of follow me down the picture as I'm working. I'll be sort of revealing it. I'll move back occasionally just to give you a glimpse. But what I want to do is show you how simple you can make this sort of picture, or how simply you can make it. So yeah, I'm starting off with blue. I'm going to have a little bit of pale blue first, and this is just royal blue with a bit of white thrown in, although the white won't come just yet. Let's just get some blue on there, because even if I paint a dark sky, I do like to show a little ray of hope, have a little bit of bright sky. Not necessarily on the horizon, of course, it could be up the top, and in this case it's going to be up the top. So let's just get that on there. This is royal blue, tiny amount of white, not a lot. And it's a really good, it's actually a very powerful blue. You want to cover up something on a board before you paint, or a canvas, just paint it with royal blue. My goodness. It's particularly, what's the word they use? It has good covering qualities, I suppose. And I think it's obviously to do with the amount that the granules of pigment are ground up. Maybe it's more for blue. I don't know. I've always felt this. So I don't think there's any. I've never sort of researched it, and I don't think there's any scientific proof of this. Maybe there is. Maybe I've missed something. Quite possible. So yeah, blue, bit of white. That's all it takes. Now, quite often when I'm doing these videos, I say around about this stage, I'm going to keep this as short as possible. I'm not. This one's going to take a while, because I'm going to be, hopefully, well, you never know, it might work. I'm going to try to get this all done in one go. Quite often I do everything in 2 stages. And but this one, we'll see. It may all go down in one, don't know. Now, the shape of the cloud in the previous painting was dark here, going off dark up there. I'll do something similar. There's no way that I'm going to copy the exact same thing. So it'll just take its own shape, really. Not too worried about much pale blue down here, but we'll have something there just for the heck of it. Okay, right, I'm going to zoom back a little bit, because I'm going to start piling on the dark cloud, just to get the basic shape. So for the dark colour, you have to be a little bit bold with this. There's no point holding back. And of course, holding back on what you do in a painting is something that beginners tend to suffer from. They'll have everything ready, all the colours lined up, nice neat palette in front of them. Maybe you see yourself in this situation, and you dip your brush in the medium, get some paint, and then you freeze. Well, yeah, freezing won't get you anywhere. and I do sympathise because, you know, I was like that. But you just got to sort of do stuff. Just chuck it on. Even if it looks terrible, which I know this does already. Already I have achieved terribleness. We'll see how it goes then. Now, as what I just put on there is Ultramarine and Payne's grey, but what I want to do now is get a little bit more variation in that. So let's get it really dark in a few places. Doesn't have to blend. I'm not blending. Don't blend anything for a while. You just have to trust your intuition. And let me just say, because I often say it, what's the worst that can happen? You know, when you think about it, everything that's going on in the world, your painting, if it goes wrong, can be fixed much quicker than the world. So see this as your own little world that you're creating. Something goes wrong in it and you put it right. Just with a few quick, hopefully reasonably deft brush marks. This is definitely, in fact, I'll tell you what, I said something in a recent video, and I said something about me editing out all the expletives, and it's amazing how many people said, don't edit them out, leave them in. Temptation. Now, I'm not necessarily someone who swears much, but even if one does slip out, who the cares? So I didn't swear, it's all in your mind. Okay, now then, I've got some, I just entertain you while I'm painting. There's nothing mystical about what I'm doing here. All I'm doing really is just putting some paint on a board, and I can actually multitask when I'm doing things like this, and I can actually talk at the same time. So I'll talk. I bought some new software, some more editing software. I had the basic plan, which is actually really good, and it's Filmora. This is not a paid promotion. They don't pay me anything. I just like them. So I thought, well, I've used the basic plan. Let's get the Pro plan. So I got the Pro plan, downloaded that to my computer, and what a difference. It's like the difference between flying a toy glider and landing a jumbo jet. Quite a difference. It'll be an interesting experience learning how to do it. So, but for this one, I might edit this on the other version until I get the hang of it. It's not that I want to do any fancy effects or anything, but it does give you a few sort of extra things you can do, particularly with titles. What I want to do is give a sort of cinematic effect. I want the videos to be a little bit more, well, just a little bit more professional, I suppose. I don't want, you know, first one, I don't want me in the way, so I'm really working hard about not being in the way. But I want the quality of everything to be just that much better. Because if you're going to watch a video and the sound quality is bad, or if the picture is out of focus, or I don't know, all kinds of stuff that can go wrong, it's not going to really help. I think it would interfere with your concentration, and I don't want to do that. Now, bottom of the sky, I'm going to go for a slightly more neutral colour. So I'm going to use blue and grey with a little bit of white thrown in, and let's see what that does. It's going to be blue, but it's going to be sort of between what I've got on there. And what I've not got on there, oh well, there you go. So down here, let's see, what should we do? I'm going to have light rays coming from the sky. People have asked about this and they seem to want to see how to do it. And it's actually, I keep saying this, and I know it irritates some people. I say, oh, it's not difficult. Well, some of it's difficult, but I mean, I say it because I've done it, but and people say, oh, well, it's easy for you to say, you've been doing it for a long time. Well, yeah, sorry about that, but if you do it enough, you'll be able to say it as well. You'll be able to say, oh yes. So you'll have a painting on your wall at home, and someone will say, wow, that's pretty cool. And you say, yeah, it's really easy actually. It's quite hard to stop saying it, and I'm not blowing my own trumpet or anything. I'm just opening my mouth too much, I suppose. Anyway, all right. So here we are with a sort of slightly neutral edge to the cloud. Oh yes. I know what I was going to tell you. When I originally painted this picture, I called it "Oh," and then several asterisks. I left the umbrella in the car, which means, oh, I left the umbrella in the car. In other words, there was an expletive in there. I'll get off expletives in a minute. Go to something else. Now, down here, clouds are going to come down to the ground. You know that sort of look that you get when there's a really nasty storm coming, where you look at the horizon and the grass and the trees are getting a lot of light, but the sky's dark behind them, and it gives that sort of, it actually gives a sort of what I call a false perspective look. If you have a very, very dark grey sky and then sunshine hitting the land below it, it seems to make the land seem closer to you. So in other words, something that's quite far away suddenly looks really in your face, you know. If I can find a picture of that, I'll put one on the screen about now. If I didn't, it's because I couldn't find it, but I will. I'll look for it. So down here, let's see, what should we do? We need some variation. So let's put in some variation. It's like if you when you're painting, if here's a little mind trick, old Welsh Jedi mind trick. So you want something in the painting to be lighter. So for instance, I want a bit of light here. Okay, what's the best way for me to do that? Well, the best way for me to do that is to do this. Just put some light on there. Not tickle it. Don't tickle it in. If you tickle it in, it will not have the immediacy. It'll look like an afterthought. Put it on big and bold. Worry about it later. The easiest thing in the world is to calm that down because it's surrounded by all this dark colour. Start light on that sort of thing and then gradually tone down. Doesn't happen often in an oil painting. Usually you start dark. Well, in fact, I did start dark, obviously, but you know, you mustn't be afraid to make bold statements. So down here, you see, we've got all this slightly, obviously, considerably paler sky than what's going on up here. So be brave. And as you can see, the shape of these clouds just seems to sort of start appearing. This thing, I'll tell a little story about this make things happen thing. Years ago, when I lived in England, I used to go gliding occasionally, and I used to go to the Dunstable Gliding Club, and it was great. I really enjoyed it, and you know, I was flying around. One of my first flights there was an instructor sitting behind me in the glider, obviously. Well, he's not going to be strapped to the wing, is he? And when we were coming in for my first ever landing, he said it's very important that you keep your head looking forward. Don't look left and right. When you're committed to land, look ahead. So, and he said that way you can sort of react instantly. Pretty obvious, really. Basic stuff. As we were coming to land, I turned my head to look to the right slightly, and he grabbed hold of my head and yanked it around so that I was facing the front. He said, look to the front. And then he said, oh, so that stuck in my head. I didn't make that mistake again because I thought, well, that could have broken my neck. But anyway, we were drifting to the right. So he said, we need to go to the left. Don't just think that we're going to go to the left by moving the stick a little bit. He said, very emphatically, make it happen. And that sort of sunk home too. We want something to happen like that, something that's definite. I mean, that's vaguely life-threatening. This is not, obviously. But you want something to happen in the painting, make it happen. Don't pussyfoot around. Do something a little bit like that. Just do it. Worry about the consequences afterwards, because obviously it is only a painting and it is not a glider. So I hope some of that made sense. There, you just have to grab the bull by the horns, as they say. Right, now I think I'm going to move the camera up. No, I'm not. I'm going to zoom in a little bit just to show you how I'm going to get the sky to basically collide with the landscape. Right, hopefully you can see that all nice and clearly now. What I'm going to do here, before I do any more of the sky pulling down technique, by that I mean pulling it down to the landscape, I'm just going to get a brush with some white and pale blue paint on it. So here, now remember what I said at the beginning, I don't really care about what happens to that, that's just a quick guide for me to do something. So I'm just going to put some light on the picture here, just very, very pale blue. And this is something for me to work the landscape into. There's several ways of doing this. Some people would say, oh, you're going about this completely the wrong way, that's fine, that doesn't matter. It's what works. This is all I'm showing you is what works for me. And I'm sure it'll work for you if you try it. The thing is, I know from experience that this way keeps the painting clean. We don't get bogged down in anything that's going to just, you know, cause mud, and you don't want mud. It's the thing that puts a lot of people off, I think. You start painting and you can't understand why everything is sort of blending together and there's no life in the painting. And it's because you have achieved mud. You have basically entered the kingdom of muddom. So let's try and avoid that. Let's also try and let you see what I'm doing. So this is really awkward doing it like this, but never mind. Okay, so all I'm doing here, as you can see, is pulling this colour down to the landscape. Some people would have said, oh, why don't you do that first? And the reason I won't do that first is because that's what makes mud. This way, these colours are clean. This is nice and dark, this is nice and pale blue-grey, and at the moment, it's not too much of a mess. It could turn into a mess, but I'll try not to make it into a mess. So all I'm doing then, as you can see, is pushing this light colour up to the edge of the horizon. There we go. Right, so that's actually not a bad connection there. Now, you can see that there's a white line where there's no paint all the way along the bottom there, and that's intentional. And the reason it's there, I'll show you now. Just going to get some more sap green and red ochre on the brush. And all I'm going to do is pull the two together. The light rays, before I go on with that, the light rays coming down from the sky, they may go on a second sitting, I'm not sure yet. It's quite a fiddly thing to do, and it may cause problems, so we'll see. If I can get them on here, or at least the beginnings of them, maybe there'll be light rays, but not such big light rays as the other painting, which I'll put on the screen again now, just to give you a reminder. And so, next, landscape into sky. So along here, all I've got to do is just increase the height of everything just a little bit. And then when I mix it with the light that I put on the sky, they will join together and give you a nice, slightly misty bit of perspective. So you can see there, between the hump on the right and the bigger hump on the left, where the sky and the land are actually blending together. It's gone off into a mist. So I'm just going to move the camera slightly to the right a bit and show you how I do the next bit. So, as you can see, white line around this thing, whatever it is. It's a copse. Copse or a wood or a forest or something. Someone will tell me. In fact, someone did tell me. I can't remember what they said now. So there we are. There's some kind of tree structure thing. I'm a little bit worried about it being bang in the middle of the painting, so I might just do something to that in a minute, just to sort of offset it a bit. And I'll figure out how to do that as we progress. So over here, in fact, I'll tell you what, I'll make it longer. It's a bigger wood. Then we've got a bit of something going on here, and then we've got another big thing. Let's turn that into a bit more of a hill, I think. I know I got in the way there. I do apologise. Right. Okay, so all I'm after with the landscape, and this happens often, is it's just salad under the main course. Okay, that sound is me tearing a big piece of paper off a roll, not my stomach digesting something. Okay, so there you can see, before I go on to the sky, first of all, how to get a sky meeting a landscape with it looking as though it should be there, rather than pasted on top. And I'm just going to, before I go up to the sky, I can't resist it, I have to do a couple of things. And it's just my nature, which I think is either obsessive compulsive or I suffer from ADH, whatever it's called. Attention deficit, maybe. I don't know. I do have the ability to concentrate for long hours, so I suppose it can't be that. Just wanted a bit of light there, just under that band of woodery. So yeah, before I get to, as I said, before I get to the sky, I just want to sort of do a few simple things down here, just to show you how you can get these effects. Now that area there, it looks sort of quite interesting. You know, you've got all kinds of things happening on the land, but I think I can make it more interesting just by simplifying and darkening, like so. Just a few shapes in the landscape to excite the eye, I hope, anyway. Are your eyes excited? I'm just going to put something there because, yeah, because is enough, isn't it? Right, so I'm going to leave that for now and go on to the sky. Right, so the top of the sky first. And I think what we'll do is we'll just, this is exactly the same colour on here that I was using earlier. I just wiped the brush a little bit, not too much, just take some of the residue off. What I want to do is get rid of that white bit. That's the only bit of white board, the actual board that's showing through. Now the question I'm asking myself is, do I actually want to put paint on it, or do I want to try something else? And I think I want to reduce paint a bit. So what I'll do for that is just rub the two together. It's a reasonable effect, I think, for something so simple as, you know, not using a fancy blending brush, just a piece of paper. And of course there won't be brush marks on it. In fact, there won't even be paper marks. because when you go around in little circles like that, it's just not the same as, you know, I mean, if I wipe it, it'll leave a certain character of mark. If I do this, it's just blurring, I suppose. That's all it is. Okay, so, and it also gives these nice random shapes, like this up here, that dark bit there, the light around it. There's a few sort of interesting patches there. This one here is a little bit too much at the moment, so I'll just sort of mute it slightly. And then round the edges of these, can you see? Let's make sure you can see what I'm doing. I think you can, yeah, just on the edge here. Okay, it's a little bit of softening there. So the next thing, let's try and figure out what we're going to do in the middle here. Right, so this bit, at the moment it's got an interesting angle on it, a jaunty little angle, which we don't want. So a bit more paper. I'll be doing the old big brush technique on this a bit later on, just not at the moment. Quite interesting, I think on the video you can see some of there's a tiny amount of red in there reflecting through, quite interesting. Doesn't show much on the painting, but there's a tiny bit that was on the brush, which just sort of adds to it, I think. So this thing in the middle here, what should we do with that? Well, I think we'll just sort of, similar thing that I was doing up here, just sort of push it around a bit and start getting a bit of structure to the cloud. What I want to do, obviously, is the cloud has to look round, because they're not flat, clouds are round, they're all round. So to do that, you have to start using your lights and darks. So this light bit up here, I want to soften as it comes down that way. And I also want it to trail off up there a little bit, so it's not just focused in the middle of the painting. It's a little bit in the middle, but it's everything, you know, everything can be shifted. So the way I'm going to shift that is just to get a little bit of light blue and connect it through there. Just a little bit, another blob down there. And then so there are little peaks of paint, which you may be able to see, possibly. Yeah, I think you can. I'm not worried about those, they'll all go. The thing is, I suppose, one of the simplest ways to describe painting like this is to not worry about the minute details. Try to only go for the important stuff. In other words, okay, so I've got that shape. It's quite interesting, I suppose. I mean, it's a heck of a cloud. And I have actually seen clouds like this. One particular one, wow, it was incredible. I used to live in a town in the south of England called Tunbridge Wells. And one day I was driving in the town and a black cloud came over, and it was so black, street lights all came on automatically. The amount of rain that came down was scary. People were actually running and screaming and hiding in shops and stuff. It was like night suddenly happened. The rain was so intense. I used to drive a quite high sort of vehicle back then, called a Discovery, and if you know what I mean by a Land Rover Discovery, it's the doorstep is quite a long way off the ground. And I opened the door to get out of the car, and the water came in the car. So I should have planned ahead a little bit better there, but that's how much rain it was. And the cloud was this colour, but right over the sky with lightning and all kinds of stuff going on. Very unusual for England back in those days. It would have been back in the, let me think, early 90s, I guess. Let's just have something up there for the heck of it. Okay, so that's sort of starting to look sort of round and interesting. And I think the next thing, I need to get some light highlights on it. So I'm going to zoom back a bit. Right, slight change of mind, I think. What I'm going to do next is just apply some white paint to try and show you as quickly as I can how to get the sort of light looking out underneath this this cloud here. So let's just see what happens. I often do this. When I painted the other picture, the original, it was done in two sittings, I think. So a lot of the underpaint had dried, or most of it in fact. So this is a little different because this is very wet on wet. So I want a sort of like a burn here of light coming from underneath this cloud. So the only way to do it, as I said, is just sort of go for it. Just put the paint on. Right, that's the sort of beginning of it. I'm not trying to make sunbeams with the palette knife. What I'm trying to do is put paint on the edge of the dark cloud and then just pull it away. I'm not worried about how accurate that looks at the moment. It's just so I don't build up too much paint just on that edge. Now, if I want that to look more like a sunbeam, I guess I'm going to have to get a slightly different brush. Let's try this one. Okay, this is one of my broad sky brushes. I quite often use these, but I've sort of taken to these lately because they're sort of bigger and softer, and they just sort of, I don't know, they just seem to respond better. Now, this may work a little bit, it may not, but never mind. So all I'm going to do, really, I hope I can get this reasonably quickly, is that plus a bit. So let's do a few more of those. The important thing with a sunbeam is it must not bend. The light, when it comes from behind a cloud, can only go dead straight. Okay, very important. So don't suddenly have a bit of a beam going that way and then this way and this way. Now that may happen. In nature it can happen, but sometimes in a painting it can look wrong. This is where we get into the realm of artistic license. In other words, what's correct and what looks correct. It may be correct, but it may look totally wrong. So here, all I'm doing is just pulling paint away from the edge of the dark. As straight as I can get it. Now, these light beams will go right down. They don't stop. Light doesn't come 93 million miles to bounce on the back of that cloud to then get reflected halfway down to the planet. They always hit the ground. It's like if you imagine going out with a flashlight, or as we call it in the UK, a torch, and shining it in the air, but it only goes 6 feet, and then it stops. It wouldn't be natural, obviously. I know that. I know you know that. So you have to bear that in mind for your painting as well. So now that I've got a sort of edge there, I'll be working on that later. I just need to get some more paint on there so that I can bring the light right down. As you see, I've got to keep it as straight as possible. Said he, putting a curve in it. So we'll uncurve that. It's because I'm standing over to the left. That's my excuse. So I've got to overcompensate. And down here, you may not be able to see it. It's hitting the landscape, and it's what we call in England buggering it up. So But again, as you know, with the landscapes, they're totally flexible. It's all down to going over it again with a bit of your main green colour. I'm just going to adjust the camera so you can see what I'm talking about here. So as you can see, at the moment, there's a slight bend in it, so it's not important. We'll unbend it, and we'll unbend it with this. Now, there's several ways of doing this. I can follow that, keep following it, but sometimes it actually doesn't hurt to do that. Just to take out some of the brush marks. Give you an idea what's going on later. Does that make sense? It is one of the, I suppose, in this, everything that I do on this painting, this is the hardest bit. Everything else is actually quite logical. Some people may not see this as logical because they haven't done it the logical way before. So there we are now. What I could do, let me think, what could I do? First of all, I have to be taking that sunbeam right down. It's got like a band here of dark. Don't want that. I have to lose that, otherwise it won't work. So I'm just going to pile a load of paint there. As I said, just make it happen. Be bold. Of course, the good thing about this, working like this, is that whatever I do here, if it goes completely wrong, I can just erase everything, start again. But I won't do that without telling you. They all seem to get there in the end. There we go. So I'm going to just pull this over the land now, like that. Now I could leave that slightly misty, blurry look there, but I'm not going to, because it just doesn't feel right. I think that may be okay for that. So now, as I said, when you do that sort of thing, all you need to do is get your landscape brush back. That's the brush with all the trees in it waiting to come out. And then reshape the landscape, and it's really fast. It's just, that's not going to be good. Things rattling while I'm painting. So there's the top of the whatever it is, Pimple Mountain. Changes every time you adjust it, you see. And then just put that back like so. And now it's not blurry from the brush marks, it's just slightly misty because it's mixed with a little bit more white. So that I'm going to leave for now. I'll work on the edge here with a few white highlights, and then I'll go up and start working around this big dark sky. Over there, I think we need a little bit of light. So let's put a little bit of light over there. Let's have something here. And then just push it off and around that way. Nice little light spot. And what should we do next? That didn't take long, did it? Right, so I think that little bit of light should come around there and be appearing just over here a little bit. Actually, the more I paint now, the more I use a palette knife. I didn't use one for years. Yeah, I mean decades. I just did not touch palette knives. Not for painting with, just for mixing occasionally on a palette, until I realised that you don't need to do that, you can just use a brush. But lately, I found I actually quite enjoy it. Something about it. The thing is with the palette knife, I think I mentioned this in my last videos, It's not just for putting paint on, it's for doing things like this. It's to get intensity. And you must admit that's quite intense. It won't be so intense in a moment or two because I'll be, usually as I do this sort of stuff, I sort of do stuff, mute it, do it again, mute it, and that gives you a build-up of interesting layers. In the original there was a bit of yellow in that sky there. Not sure whether I'm going to do it in this one. At least if I do, it would have to be later because I've got so much blue, and I would just end up with completely green on the sky, which won't do. So let's start troweling on a little bit of white. Let's have some up here. There's got to be a bit of light popping up around that side of the cloud, I think. Or if there isn't, there's going to be. So there we are, a little bit of light there. Ah, I've done that thing that I keep doing. I do apologise. A palette knife is not just for putting paint on, it's also for doing this sort of thing, where you put the paint and then push it around almost randomly, and it will give you interesting cloud formations. You see, you take away the pressure of painting a cloud just by putting the components in colour that make a cloud on the surface. And of course this means that you're not continually thinking to yourself, oh, I'm gonna ruin this cloud, because don't think of it as paint. It's paint. Okay, I'm going to nag you about this. This is paint, not cloud. It will eventually look like a cloud. It can't help it, because all the colours and the components, by the components I mean the shapes and the colours, are sitting there ready to be turned into a cloud. So let's have a nice bit there, you see. A light bit of cloud is basically a white bit of paint next to a dark bit of paint. And then once you get that sort of idea in your head, you cease to paint the object and you start to paint the essence of the object, which when you look at nature, that's what you see. You look around and you see a fleeting glimpse of everything. Your eye doesn't stay in one place and stare. Or if it does, I suggest maybe you should get help. But I mean, you know what I mean. Your eyes take in the whole image rather than just one bit of it. I think I want to do something exciting down the bottom before I move on. I was going to do that thing again where I forget to move the camera, but now I'm going to move the camera. So let's go down there and a bit more. So still using the palette knife, I think we need to get a little bit more something under there. After all, the sun is behind this stonking great cloud, you see, and it's going to take every possible crack to show itself through. So let's have a little bit of cloud shape there. I'm going to be going over the whole thing with a big brush in a minute, but I'm going to avoid that area where I've got that sort of, it's the beginning of a sunbeam anyway. It's a little bit, bit bulbous at the moment, but that may have to be a next sitting. So where should we go now? Burning question of the day. Let's have a little bit more intensity there. I'm not going to bring it down here. I'm just going to sort of put some intense light up in that little bit there. Okay. And then I think here we can have a nice bit of cloud that's further away behind this main cloud that's catching the light. As I said, in the beginning, this won't be exactly like the original. It's just something on the same theme, I suppose. Okay, that's just there. So these are all very rough and ready bits of paint that will make cloud in a few minutes. It's just the, just as I said, assembling the components. In fact, what I'll do, I'm going to get the big brush again and some old paper. And do a little bit of softening. As I said, I'll avoid that bit, but over here, let's see, let's just double check you can see everything. Okay, just a little bit of softening, not much. It's just so that I can then go over it again. And because I do, as I said, I like to work in layers. So in other words, this will be a little bit of blurring, a blurring layer. And then when I've finished with this, I'll put a few more hot spots on, or tonal changes, and then I'll go over it again until I get the effect that I want. Okay. I hope this is helping you to understand how you can get these effects quite quickly without too much faffing around. So here I'm using mostly the side of the brush, but I'm using the corners as well here. I want to get in there and blur a little bit more precisely. Just once I get that looking the way I want it, then I'll wipe the brush and then go over the whole thing, hopefully in one or two hits. Not too much, just a few, like so. Okay, starting to come together. I want to do something definitely in the middle now. I've got to get a little bit of variation in that. So I'm going to be bold. Keep telling people to be bold, so I'm going to be bold myself, if I may be so bold, and just get a little bit of, I don't know, what you call it, just a little bit of texture. Can be anything you want at this stage. Just put it in roughly where you think you might need it. Just get that central bit. Okay. It wasn't until I started making videos that I realised how often I say, okay. I do that even when I'm not making videos, if I'm painting or if I'm working and something goes right. I've done that. I've done it all my life. And I think it must be really irritating to some people. I just say, okay. So, I wonder whether the process of being in a room making a video tells you quite a lot about yourself. Apart from what you're doing, it actually gives you time alone to sort of, I suppose it's almost like analysing yourself. Well, as far as I'm concerned, the way it works with me is, when I start a video, you see, apart from the fact that this is one of the few ones that I've done where I've actually planned what I'm going to do. In other words, you know, I know I'm going to do this big storm cloud thing, but usually they're just sort of whatever comes to my mind. Whereas this one, as I said, it's sort of planned, and it's a bit dark there. So it means that I'm looking into myself, wondering what I'm going to paint, and sort of, it's like, tell me if you think I'm rambling, it's like trying to find within yourself what it is that you're going to paint. Because if you don't know at the beginning, you see, it's got to be something that you're going to drag out and hopefully discover don't want to sound too philosophical and self-analytical about this, but it sort of occurred to me that it could be like a kind of therapy, because well, I can say what I like as long as I don't swear. Okay, so let's have a little bit more softness up there. Okie doke. Now then, I have to say, while I'm doing this, I'm just sort of, pushing paint around at the moment. Most of the comments I get on YouTube are really pleasant. Just so you know, I have really good filters to filter out anything undesirable. Oh, the one thing I should say, some people have sent me links. They send links to their own page. I've got a filter up to stop that, because you shouldn't really promote your page on someone else's page. It's just not done. So any links, and it's not just to a page on YouTube, any link that comes to me, because obviously, sometimes I get undesirable links, people putting up, they get bounced. So I get to see everything before it comes on the page. If you write me a normal message, same, I think most YouTubers do this, if you just write me a message, it's just going to appear on my timeline. If you write anything abusive, the filters will pick it up. But, I think some people have genuinely sent me links just to advertise themselves, and that's just not, as we would say in England, it's just not cricket. It's up to you to promote your page, but not on the back of someone else. I don't mean to sound mean by saying this, but it just isn't done. So now I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, do I really need a lighter cloud as well? And I think maybe I'm going to try that. So I think I know what I'm going to do. Just took a moment there to pause for thought. I think I'm going to bring a little bit of cloud across. Yeah. Just going to change the shape slightly. And I think just something there. And then with the big brush again, a little bit of softening down. And down here, I think just a few. Yeah, so what was I saying? Oh yes, about comments. Most of the comments that I get, I would say 99% in fact, are really pleasant, and I'm really pleased about that. And I answer as many questions as I can. I did say, I think a couple of videos ago, that I'm going to probably, if you don't get an answer from me in the first 2 days after I put up a video, it's because I just can't, find the time, because apart from doing this, I also, I just felt I had to do that there. I also design lots of books. So pressure work, so to speak. That's quite an interesting little sky, this. But I do like hearing what you've got to say. It seems that oops, hang on, I'll just move that. It seems that, and I find it quite amusing, a lot of people from the US seem to like my accent. It's just a normal English accent. Well, not everybody speaks the way I do. I mean, there are so many regional accents in England, but my accent is particularly southeast of England, even though I'm Welsh. Welsh accent is nothing like what I'm talking now. If I was talking with a Welsh accent, I'll talk with a Welsh accent for a minute. It's quite hard to switch it on. Anyway, this painting is done in oil paint, you see. Now that's a Welsh accent, that's how they talk in Wales. It's depending on whether you come from North Wales or South Wales. I come from South Wales, and in South Wales we have quite deep voices. And in North Wales, I don't know whether it's a joke I heard years ago, but their voices get a little bit high like this. See, they talk like that. Anyway, so I lost my Welsh accent, and I do apologise for anyone in the north of Wales, in case that's offended you. If it has, never mind, you get over it. But yeah, I was born in the southeast of England, and I have what's called, I think, a BBC accent. So, in other words, a newsreader accent. And I'm quite pleased that people seem to like, oops, I'm in the way. People seem to like my accent anyway, so I'll continue to talk. Some people do say, oh, you talk too much. Okay. But, you know, if you're teaching someone something, you have to make them feel at ease and relaxed. I know that continually talking in a studio environment could irritate the heck out of some people. But most people find it calming because there are no awkward silences. I'm not happy with that there. I'm going to just be a little bit brazen here and just pull that around a bit and muck it up. And then reshape it. There we are. Well, I've got some intense light. I think for a first sitting it's coming out okay. I probably will have to go to a follow-up video, I think. But I'm sort of quite enjoying this. And it's one of these videos where I'm actually enjoying it so much I don't want to stop. But the problem with that is, of course, that the amount of upload time I need here in rural France is ridiculous. The internet is so slow. Let's give you a quick up and down view of what we got so far. So there's the absolute top. And down we go. There's the land. Now I might just do a little something or two with the land. Let's just zoom in a little bit more. I'm going to keep the camera going. I'm not going to cut this, so excuse the bumps. Okay, so, and in fact I'm even going to check the focus while you're here. There we are. Now, let's have a little think about what we can do with the land. What can we do? Well, I'm not going to do a lot. I'm going to use a palette knife. I probably won't use a brush now on the land. And I'm going to get some green. I just happen to have a bit of light green here. I wasn't very professional the other day. I went to a shop, an art supply shop, to get some paint. I bought a whole load of paint. And then when I got back, I realised that I hadn't picked up a tube of light green. Now, light green is it's basically light green. I always say this. It's basically light green. It's what it says on the tube, and that's what comes out. And it's just the right sort of colour for sunlight hitting the grass. And there's a bit of light green. Wonderful stuff. Let's go where it's focused. Okay, light green. The only thing I'm going to do with this, just because for speed, normally I would let the landscape dry, and as I said, I will be coming back on this. I'm just going to put in a few little bits of light. Let's just have some there, because the light is coming down that way. I'll move over a bit. No, I'm not. I'm going to leave it. The light is coming down here, so there's absolutely no reason why there wouldn't actually be quite a sort of strong burn of light. A burn of light. Have I invented a new saying? It's probably totally wrong. A shaft of light hitting the ground. Although if we get really technical, that's the shaft, the ground. So once the shaft has hit the ground, I guess it's no longer a shaft. Isn't it amazing what you think about when you're painting? Okie dokie. Right. So, oh dear, I don't quite like that. I either like it or I don't quite like it. And if I don't quite like it, it's not good enough. It just needs to be just calmed down a little bit on the bottom edge there. And in fact, I'm gonna put some dark back in there, just there, and cover the bottom edge a little bit. That's always a good way of hiding something you're not quite happy about. Okay, so all I wanted to show you there was that, well, I could continue, you know, putting this green on, but I could be making an awful lot of work for myself at this stage. So that's just that and one more little bit, and then I will call it quits for now. So let's just have a few patches. Let's have just a hint. You see, they don't have to be anything in particular, but as long as they look as though they might be, they might be something. You see, that might be a bit of light hitting there, and it could be, you know, like sort of bands of light down the edge. And I think really that is where I'm stopping now. So I'm going to give you an overview, or is it an awful view? I think an overview of the whole thing, and then I will be back in the next video. But before I go, the usual stuff. Thanks for watching. Hope you learnt something. Hope you enjoyed it. I did. I do Zoom classes. All the info that you need for that will be in the info box below the video. I have a Patreon page if you're interested in sending me thousands and thousands of dollars. If you don't, I will understand. What else? Yeah, and if you want to come to a Zoom class, I might have already said that. You know, just check the links. And they're good fun. We all have a bit of a laugh, and it goes on quite a long time. Okay, so I think for now that's it. So there you are. Let me just put the focus on auto. Hope that's in focus. And there's the bottom. And we'll zoom in. Very basic landscape. Thanks for watching. See you on the next video. Bye for now.